strikes me one of the biggest challenges, though, is that I think that a lot of organizations are firefighting. They're spending a huge amount of time, and partly because of just the nature of things, but it's also about where money's spent. Trying to have money spent on things before they've become a problem is often a challenge. Trying to justify spend on something before they've got anything tangible to say, well, look, this genuinely is a real risk. This isn't just like, we're not just a boy cry wolf here. This is genuinely like a real issue. This could really happen. And it's I think that's a challenge. I mean, certainly when I think about what our solution and what we do is that we find it much easier to sell the things that will fix the problem after it's become a problem, as opposed to helping, selling the organization the thing that will help them prevent the issue happening in the first place. Because one of them is actually presenting a real tangible threat right there and then, and the other is about being prepared and being, having a mature approach to, prevention. But I think the reality is prevention something that a lot of organizations don't do because it's hard to justify. It's much easier to justify the cure than it is the cause. I think that's one of the challenges as well that we were talking about earlier, isn't it, I guess?
Yeah. And I think people also, to a certain degree, look at a very small sensor. Let's say it was even a thermostat in your house that's a small class 0 IoT device. People look at that and say, well, so what if somebody hacks that? What do I care if they know what the temperature is in my house? But that's not the issue. What do people care if somebody's seeing the vibration of a motor on a motor that's sensing for predictive maintenance? Who cares about that? Well, the answer is there's an awful lot of people that care because of where they can go with that. Studies show that that the perpetrators of cyber crime fall into some general categories. They are nation states that are trying to take over devices for possible future use for disruption and panic if they needed to create those kinds of issues against an enemy of state. They are systems administrators and insiders that often are collecting data for clandestine purposes. Organized crime is without a doubt the biggest one. And their motivations become, why would they do this? Well, financial gain, espionage for IP and key trade secrets, disruption of people's life, as in the case of nation states or even crime, as we talked about, political advantage and retaliation. Those are the big items, big reasons why people do this stuff. And we've got as a digital community and a computer community around the globe to really think in terms of that. The smarter we get in terms of use of these IoT devices, the smarter the bad actors get for use of the data and for collecting this data. And every day there are headlines and new cases where bad actors are collecting everything from IP and trade secrets to military and classification information, server infrastructures, authentication data, financial data. All of those things are being stolen daily.
So I suppose the difficulty is it's the sheer volume of IoT, but also the quality of the coding, the quality of the security that's being input into these things, and then the lack of actual verification before they're even allowed to get to be utilized within the corporate environment, or actually within any environment that has that's providing access as well. I mean, I think that I can see that must be that is a real challenge. I mean, how can you protect against something that is that wide? I mean, that must be incredibly difficult to do.
Yeah, and we have to think about these devices not just in terms of convenience, convenient little inanimate objects. We have to think of them as a computer. This is a computer that can be accessed, and even even if it's a small computer and nobody could get past that small device, there are bad actors who are taking millions of these devices, being able to take them over through a sophisticated computer program, stitch a million of them together, and use the collective computing power of that to attack someone else and shut their systems down on the other side, and distribute the computing power across a million small IoT devices.
Right.
Well, if you're an elderly person, if you were, my mother and father or someone's grandmother out there who has these devices, I wonder how they'd feel if they knew that a bad actor, an organized crime, or a nation state was using their computer to perpetrate a crime. Those kinds of things have to come into play. And in your neck of the wood, GDPR is demanding that there be a certain minimum level of security on consumer devices. And it's for that very reason. The United States, a bill just passed this last week that requires a minimum level of security on even the smallest of IoT devices that are doing business with the U.S. federal government, and especially if it involves military, because those devices are going to market without security. Absolutely. And they're leaving it wide open to bad actors.
That's really interesting, and I think a lot of people would be surprised how many of their devices are even they're even IoT. That they probably don't even realize how many IoT devices they've even got. I think that's probably. I was just thinking about my home, even from a personal perspective. I bet you I've got a ton more IoT devices than I even know I've got. I mean, it's scary to keep track of these things, right?
It was really interesting. I was at a potential customer's office here recently, and we had our masks on, by the way. I was at a potential customer's office, and he pulled up the dashboard of his own home. He pulled up the router dashboard so that he was showing us some data. This is a company that is an internet service provider. And so he pulled up his own personal dashboard, and he starts looking at it. And the more he looked at it, he said, I haven't been on here in a while. And there was a list of probably 40 different devices that was on his system. And he said, where did all these come from? I mean, he was genuinely shocked. Yeah. And this is a guy who is a senior engineer at an ISP.
This is it.
It's so easy to connect so many devices and do that without concern for the security.
This is it. I've got refrigerators, microwaves, kettles. I mean, a whole bunch of this stuff, right? And it's just people don't even think about these. They're just not even thinking about what it actually means for their security as well. Really interesting. Really interesting.
I mean, you look at your own, even in your vehicle, it's connected at multiple points. For collection, not only collection of data, but also for safety and for operating ability. I mean, it's a digital world.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. It's fascinating, and I think that you've got such an interesting point that you raise. I think that this is the thing where if we think about the way that security is going to be in, say, 5 or 6 years' time, this is going to be the thing that everyone's going to be talking about. This is the thing that everyone's going to be doing, because this is, I'll tell you why, because it's a massive gap. It's a massive flaw. At the moment, it's a hacker. It's one of the easiest ways in. It's one of the easiest ways in because it's an oversight, because most organizations, most people just don't think about that they don't realize what a risk it is, and hackers do. Hackers
statistics show 98% of all IoT devices have either no security, which is most of them, or wholly inadequate security. That is just a massive gap.
It is.
And if we think it's bad now, give us about 5 years. In 5 years' time, quantum computers are going to be mainstream, and they will break the security that's on your smartphone and mine that is out there now. The encryption will not be able to withstand the attacks from quantum computers. That opens up the entire world. We've got to move quickly to not only secure these small devices, but to secure them from quantum computers in the future, or all data will be subject to theft.